Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, Principal Atmospheric Scientist at Nutrient Ag Solutions, and I want to thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. We're going to start first here with a satellite animation from yesterday on Sunday, and it's important to be looking at this one for a couple of reasons. One, the large swirl that you see there off of the eastern seaboard of the United States, that is that pesky upper level low that sat over us for so many days, bringing us all that heavy rainfall. But what's coming from the west is generally going to be a stormy pattern, not only just now through the next week or so, but possibly even beyond that into the month of July. We are full on in a summer flow regime at this point. I'm going to explain to you exactly what I mean in a few moments. But it's neat. As the sun was setting last night, you can see the one towering thunderstorm right here that just blew up right along the coast as the sun was setting. And I think it's also kind of fascinating to watch the early morning convection right there put out this outflow boundary. Watch it again right here. I'll move the mouse. You can just see the storms kind of clearing out the skies before it got quite cloudy over toward the Appalachian Mountains as this upper level low came spinning through parts of Tennessee and Kentucky. Okay, let's put this whole story together though. I'm going to show you a precipitation ranks map. Now we have data that go back about 128 years in total for some of our weather stations. So looking over that entire time span, comparing the time period of May 25th through June 22nd, we can see that this is district by district where we are currently ranking in terms of wettest to dry. So the closer you are to 1, the wettest. And so because of this recent precipitation, you can see here that we have several locations that are now in their top 10 wettest out of the almost last 130 years. And that was because of where that upper level low sat and kind of spun for the last 7 days. In parts of Virginia and North Carolina, some places easily picking up several inches of rain. We're talking 6+ inches. Now, before I give you a zoomed in view of that, I do want you to notice that the South Central Plains, parts of the Western Corn Belt, and places in the Central and Eastern Corn Belt did get some much needed rainfall over the weekend, but it was still kind of hit or miss. But let's zoom in on there on that rainfall in North Carolina. And what we see here is that radar estimates put some locations in here well in excess of 5 to 7-8 inches of total accumulated precipitation as that upper level low went on through. And we still have a lot of river flooding going on, and any additional precipitation we're going to be forecasting this week will instantly produce flash flooding conditions given how saturated everything is. So now we've seen the latest calculated soil moisture anomaly change map go back over to green here with all that heavy precipitation. But I want to bring one thing to your attention here on a bigger scale. If you just kind of look inside of the arrows or the lines I just drew here, other than Tropical Storm Cristobal, which went right up in this area, so much of the primary ag belt of the United States, so I'm including from East Coast all the way to the Front Range of the Rocky Mountains, had a very dry start to the month of June, other than Cristobal and that cutoff low that sat here over the Carolinas. Now, in addition to this, we did an analysis last week that found that right in here in this area that I'm shading, we had average wind speeds, average daily wind speeds that were between 6 and 10 miles an hour above normal. So at times we had 30, 40, 50 mile an hour winds racing up the midsection of the United States. Now why this is critical, or why I'm telling you about it, is because when we think about some of the broader crops that are grown in this area, so corn, wheat, soybeans, those particular crops were put under quite a bit of stress to begin the month of June in the midsection of the United States. And all this recent rainfall in through this area is going to be absolutely critical to the health of the corn and soybean crop in the midsection of the United States. So I want you to just keep an eye on that in the Carolinas here. Now, another thing we got to be watching, which I'm sure you heard about in the news, or if you watch the Weather Channel, they've talked about it quite a bit, is this dust plume coming off of the Sahara Desert. It is one of the most optically thick dust plumes that I can remember, and I'm sure that we're going to start to get some statistics out about this very soon. Now, back in 2004, I lived right here on the island of Antigua, and that was part of a month-long research project where I got to stay there on Antigua and Barbuda for that long. It's at the very tip of the Lesser Antilles. So to see these pictures posted by 268 Weather, well, this is what things look like normally, but when that Saharan dust comes over, look at how bad the air quality is with all that Saharan dust. So that's traveling, well over 3,000 miles from the Sahara Desert to the Lesser Antilles. Now, to show you what it looks like here, it will eventually be pushing into the Gulf of Mexico and get brought into our flow pattern by the end of this week and weekend. So we may be even seeing some of this dust getting all the way to the Carolinas by the time we get into the weekend. So it's impressive to see that. Now, one comment I'd like to make about this dust should this continue, and should we keep what we call the Saharan air layer very dry compared to normal and full of dust, this would be a very positive thing in terms of limiting tropical cyclone activity later on this year. Because the drier that air becomes and the more dusty it is, the more it eats away at any would-be tropical system. So we need to watch this very carefully as we progress through our hurricane season here. This could be a wild card that could really change things up for us. Okay, from there, I want to talk to you about your air quality issues today because it's coming from the fires over parts of Arizona that some of the smoke here through early day today has finally made its way over here into the east. And we could be seeing some very hazy skies because of that smoke. And that smoke has traveled about 2,000 miles to get to you from the fires that are burning in parts of Arizona. So wanted to show you what was going on, bigger picture here, causing some issues with air quality around the country. In terms of severe weather and severe thunderstorms this week, I've got 5 maps to show you. Starting in the upper left, that's today's severe weather threat from the Storm Prediction Center. Today, tomorrow, and Wednesday, going right across the top, we do have general thunderstorm risk each day, widely scattered. I think our best chance at seeing increased risk is going to be in the day on, Tuesday night into Wednesday. I think that's when we're really going to see it. But notice, as you get into the day on Thursday, and then again in the day on Friday, we still have on our thunderstorm environment index, we're still sitting here in the 4 to 5 to 6 range, which means we could see pop-up storms on the heat that's coming toward the end of the week. So I just want to keep you aware of that. It's that summer stormy scattered storm pattern that you're all so familiar with. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This animation starts off early Monday morning and goes through early Wednesday morning. And what you see here is just the general broad trough that's stretched across the midsection of North America. And out ahead of it, well, that's where we see our thunderstorm chances kind of popping up each day here in North Carolina. Now, to go from there, I want to show you the Weather Prediction Center. So this is the National Weather Service product looking out over the next 7 days. And some of the good news about this is, we do not see the excessive precipitation across North Carolina like we had been seeing. In fact, when you compare this to normal, this is what you get. But just to keep your eye on corn and soybeans, this area getting some much needed rain, as is the South Central Plains into the Delta, while we do see drier than average conditions coming up the southeast coast of the United States. So from there, I want to give you a zoomed in view from the European model. And we're looking here at total accumulated precipitation until next Monday morning. Now, this model is not going to accurately capture what will happen with these pop-up storms as they come through, because you all know that one of them can possibly put down an inch and a half in as little as 30 minutes. But in general, what we don't see is the big, broad, low-pressure systems that sit and spin over the area like we saw last week. So this is what some of the numbers look like, preliminary numbers here on this upcoming week's precipitation. So when does it get here? Well, let's just start this animation out on Monday. I'll pause it right there and step you back through to show you this week. So going through the day on Monday, getting the afternoon and evening hours, we still need to be on the lookout for some pop-up storms. But I think that the highest probability of those storms getting to us are finally when the low that's sweeping through the eastern Corn Belt arrives. This will be, again, Tuesday in the evening hours, getting into the overnight hours, and then again on Wednesday. See it right there. That's Wednesday afternoon and evening. We could get some more showers and thunderstorms coming through with this front draped right in this area. Now, after we get through middle of the week, toward the end of the week, things tend to be a bit quieter, maybe just some chances of storms here like you see on Thursday afternoon and evening, and then again on Friday afternoon and evening. But the difference between the middle of the week and the end of the week is we have much higher atmospheric pressure at that time period, hence the lower probabilities of storms toward the end of the week. Still pop-up storms, but much lower probability than I'm seeing on Tuesday into Wednesday. As we get out toward the end of the week, high pressure really dominates into our weekend, and the flow comes right around this, feeding into a system that comes through the Corn Belt toward the end of the week and weekend. And that will possibly be bringing in some showers and storms early next week. But overall, the pattern is much drier than what it had been for a while. Now check this out. What's really dominating the end of June, the beginning of July, is today, this morning, here on Monday, sitting right here, that low pressure cell. Now where you are in the world, this is the North Pacific, so this is the Aleutian Islands off of Alaska, and this is Japan, okay? Now we're going to watch where this low goes because it will be critical to setting up our temperature pattern and therefore precipitation pattern as we get into the end of June and the beginning of July. You ready? So it's sitting right here. Now watch this, okay? Let me click play, but let's pause this and take it back. Well, let's just leave it here. This is Tuesday morning. That low is now sitting here just off the Aleutian Islands. The low pressure center that's going through parts of the Great Lakes states to the south of which we're going to increase our thunderstorm threat watch as we get into the day on Tuesday night and then Wednesday again is sitting here. But by this time, this trough is going to try to exit, and here's the next one we're watching. So again, it began here, and by Thursday, it's sitting in this area. Now let's watch where it goes by the end of the week. We see that by Thursday night, it's swept up right there into the Gulf of Alaska as trough number 1 exits. Now check this out, ready? It's going to dive into British Columbia by Friday afternoon and evening. And then by Saturday morning, getting into Sunday morning, it's now a fully established trough right here over the west coast of the United States. It took it a full week to go from here to here. But what this is going to do is as we get into early next week, look at what it does to the pattern. Highly amplifies it, such that by July 1st, deep trough west, big ridge over the Great Lakes. And we need to see what that means in terms of putting down possibly a large high pressure cell over the Carolinas, stretching all the way back to the delta of the Mississippi River, and what that's going to mean to our temperatures. So let's talk about in terms of precip first. European model over here on the left, and I have the GFS over here on the right. Now what we see is that there's going to be general thunderstorm pattern that's going to stretch across the Canadian prairies into the Midwest of the United States. We see near average precipitation. This is pop-up storms on the heat of the day. Both the GFS, which is over here on the right, which I'm circling now, and the European are seeing that same pattern. Notice they're not calling for anything tropical in the next 7 to 10 days, primarily due to all that dust. But as we look longer term, I'm going to take you all the way out to day 15. This is now July the 6th. Over this time period, we will occasionally see high pressure cells develop in here and kind of block the moisture transport. And what that means is we're going to get these dry stretches. But what we don't see is the Bermuda high, this guy right over here, moving over and is getting established over this area. And that is why in the longer term, we continue to see transport of moisture just like that. So it looks as though the upcoming, early summer pattern is going to be a stormy one, and it's going to be warmer than average. And we're going to talk about that in just a few moments. But let's look at the near-term temperatures first. Starting off on Monday, we see a lot of 80s, mid to upper 80s across the state of North Carolina. As we move forward into what we're going to see here we go. On Tuesday, we do have some cooler weather coming in Wednesday. Look at this, getting into Thursday. So this is our cooler midweek. So we're going to be seeing temperatures in the mid to upper 80s overall. But as we work our way into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the temperatures really rebound back up into what they normally are for this time of year. So that's the first trough swinging out. And here comes the second one into the northwest. Okay, where are we going from there? Well, I'm going to show it to you a little bit differently, okay? Every line, every faint gray line on this is the average position of what we call the 5,850 meter height line. Now, what does that mean? This just means this is the general flow of the jet stream for the month of July. Now, really hot Julys, the jet stream goes farther north. Cooler Julys, it stays farther to the south. What I want to show you is how things shape up for the beginning of July. This is the jet stream pattern from the GFS ensemble and the European. And look, it's putting a big ridge in the midsection of the United States here. Now that's way outside of normal to start the month of July. So what does that mean in terms of our temperatures? Well, I'll show you in just a few seconds. But by the time we get to July 6th, you can see the jet stream pattern calms down a little bit. And that'll be critical for us understanding how the rest of July is going to shake out. So in that 6 to 10 day time period, remember the jet stream was doing this, big ridge. We're going to be seeing some much above average temperatures. That's advertised in both models here as we look out toward the very end of June and the beginning of July. But as we get into July, the jet stream pattern, remember, it still stays pretty far to the north, but it doesn't bring in such highly amplified features. So maybe we go back over toward more normal summer heat, maybe a slight warm bias as we work our way out here to July the 6th. Where's all the heat going to be? In and around the Great Lakes between there and the Hudson Bay. That's at least compared to average. Now, bigger picture things. Our La Nina is still going here, but the North Pacific is very warm. The main development region for hurricanes, very warm, but remember, there's a lot of dust sitting over this area. That La Nina, I want to show you, it's been trying to get going, but every time it gets down here toward that critical number of minus 0.5 degrees Celsius, that's the temperature difference from normal, it kind of bounces off it and stays in this weak territory. I think La Nina is going to be a much bigger factor with our late summer and early fall temperature and precipitation patterns. What is dominating the tropics is the MJO. It's stuck right here. Now watch this. In May, it came screaming out like this, phase 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and got into June and just stopped. And it has been sitting and spinning in this area for a long time. So La Nina cannot do what it wants to do. We do see stronger trades right in through here, which is characteristic of La Nina. But look, on either side, there's a westerly wind burst there and a westerly wind burst here. And therefore, it's actually taken our Southern Oscillation Index, which is kind of a measure of the pressure patterns and if they look like El Nino or La Nina, and it's got it currently at -8, saying, nope, even though the water temperatures are cool, it's just El Nino-like in terms of the wind speeds. It's a very interesting pattern to say the least. But this big standing wave over Africa is doing this. It is allowing the upper levels of the atmosphere, sitting where we generate a lot of hurricanes, it's sitting in a very favorable state for tropical cyclone development. This will be a competition between dust, which is right now in this area, and the fact that the upper levels of the atmosphere are kind of coming uncapped, if you will, allowing for better exhausting of upper level motion into the atmosphere. I'm telling folks to be watching the first 15 days of July for some tropical development should that dust clear out. But that dust might be the great equalizer moving forward. With that jet stream retreating north, though, take a look at what we've got. Warmer than average conditions across much of North America. You know, we see closer to normal here over parts of the Carolinas. But how much precipitation? Well, nothing, as you saw, is shutting down that Gulf of Mexico transport. And that's why we continue to see the models advertise a stormy and potentially wet July. So we got to watch this one very, very carefully, as I think the signals pointing toward what this forecast look like are pretty hidden. I think that's the case I want to point to you here. We're going to watch it carefully over the coming days and weeks. But that's your forecast July. This is July 1st through the 31st. I want to give you a quick international update here. Let's go to the Black Sea area first. To the west of the Black Sea, so the Black Sea is right in through here. So we're seeing wetter than average conditions over the next 10 days. But look in the eastern part of Ukraine, getting into the Russian wheat belt. Very dry conditions compared to normal, and the heat is coming up in that area. Rest of Europe, relatively dry after a stormy week last week, and it is certainly warm, especially in the Scandinavian area. From there, I want to take you to China. Right in through here, we have parked what's called the Meiyu Front, and that is a stationary boundary on which we are expecting flooding rains over the next week, and that's really going to flood out that particular section of China. Now remember, Beijing is right here. So north of the Korean Peninsula and all around Beijing, we're expecting closer to average in terms of precipitation, but to the south of it, extremely wet, and flooding is going to be the problem. So I want to give you that quick, broad view of what's going on around the rest of the Northern Hemisphere growing areas, and with that, though, I'm going to go and wrap it up. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. I look forward to giving you another update next Monday, and until then, stay safe, watch out for some scattered storms, and we'll talk to you again very soon. Thank you.